Hello everyone, Simon Jacobson here. Let me just begin with an introduction, especially we're living in an extraordinary time. I don't even know if that's the right word to use for it. It's definitely creating upheaval and disturbing literally every sector of the world and every person on this earth. And based on the Rambam in the beginning of Hilchos Tainis that the Rebbe would cite so often, it would be achzorius, cruel, and insensitive if we saw it just as an accident or just ignored it. Especially something so global, literally unprecedented in our lives, in this modern age, that something like this should happen. So firstly, I want to give a blessing to everyone out there, every one of you, everyone, wherever they may be, to complete refuah shlema, reifik kol basar, the Eibusher should protect and prevent this pandemic and this disease to affect anyone. And if anyone has already been affected, it should be complete healing to the point of eifin of lechatchila le'osim alecha. Ve'asiresi machla mekir b'cha. In a way as if it never happened. And the world should get back into a peaceful place where we can continue with our lives and march into the Gula Hamitis Vashlema. We were trained by the Rebbe that when there's any situation, especially a crisis, especially where people are crying out, what are we supposed to do? What's happening? That we don't just retreat in fear, but we rise to the occasion and we're there to provide solace, comfort, strength, and everything that's necessary, especially in times like this. So anyone who's considered a chassid of the Rebbe, a shliach of the Rebbe, this is our mission now, is not in any way to throw our hands up, but to say, what can we do? Now, obviously, medical authorities have to do what they have to do, the government authorities, and we need to listen to the Rabbonim, and of course, listen to as they listen to the doctors, but at the same time, there's another battle going on over the spirit and the minds and hearts and souls, our psyches, that can be demoralized due to panic and hysteria and to pachad. And we know that the Torah, even though it always prescribed being prudent and practical, at the same time, always thinking positively. And that too is part of building up our strength to deal with any given challenge. So, as someone who sat at the Rebbe's feet, as many of you did, all of us have done in some way or another, what did the Rebbe always teach us? It was always strengthening light whenever there's darkness. So there's a Sicha that just came across. I remember when the Rebbe said it, but I didn't pay attention to the same extent as we now do. Tov Shemen Beis, Shnas HaShmeinim, when the Rebbe turned Shmeinim Shana, Yud Alef Nissan. So in a Sicha, which is prescient and uncannily relevant to our time, briefly the Rebbe says there that when there's a new disease, and a new illness, a new machla, that has never been existent before, so obviously we cannot rely on remedies and cures that were created before because they do not serve a new disease. The Rebbe says in our generation, in our era, in our tkufa, just like there's special, unique blessings and unique refuahs, medicines, there's also unique challenges and illnesses. And chol yom, every day, it gets darker. So we need to find a new cure and a new remedy. And the Rebbe even mentions and says, you have to find the right person who will be the keli for Rape Yerape, that the Eibusher will use him as a instrument to bring the healing in a way that's the right prescription to the right person, all matching to the exact situation. And then the Rebbe says, On Heibendik, von Teire mevia refuah le'elam. Teire that brings a refuah, healing to the world. And what does the Rebbe then say? That in our generation, we have the Frierdiker Rebbe, he brought a new thing that even though it was known before, but he instituted the learning of Parsha Shavua every week, and every day the shir that fits that day. In other words, from the beginning of the Parsha to Sheni on Sunday, Sheni to Shlishi on Monday, essentially chitas. The Rebbe doesn't mention the word chitas. Clearly saying that this is coming to be a remedy to the new illnesses of our time. Sheis Chanukah, Tov Shemem Vov, in a similar vein, the Rebbe mentions, there he talks about the Pei Gimel halachas in the Rambam, Pei Gimel is Gematria Machla, and says the same idea, that Torah brings healing. The Pei Gimel, Machlas that are associated with the word Machla. And there he mentions chitas as well, and the learning of Rambam. So here we have a direct directive. We don't need to look anywhere. The Rebbe is saying very clearly, when there's a new problem, a new disease, and again, Hashem Yishmer, the Eibusher, Zachmon al-Islam, protect us all, we have to find and we have to learn Torah, add in Torah. So what more fitting thing to do is to have a shiur in Torah, additional shiurim. So then when I was called by the exemplary new project Likkutei Sichos.org, to give a shiur, it was immediate. My immediate answer was absolutely. It's exactly the Rebbe's directive. This is the week of Parsha Vayakhel Pekudei, learning Parsha Shavua, and what better way to learn it through the explanation of the Rebbe in Likkutei Sichos on the Parsha. So I want to commend them for this project, and especially in this special times, in this unique time where we need more healing than ever, Torah, and especially Torah from the Parsha, from the Rebbe himself. You go to projectlikkutei.org, and there you'll see ways you can sign up and become part of. In the next week, they'll be beginning Sefer Vayikra, a new Sefer, to become part of this global movement, joining others in dividing the whole Likkutei Sichos and learning it, and what better time than now. And Shetaka being maybe the full Elam, and as the Rebbe said, and Zeis Chanukah and Eifin of Lei Chatchila Lei Osim Alecha, that when the Eibishter creates a situation of healing, it's in the way of the Chatchila Lei Osim Alecha. Okay, so with that, that's the segue. I wanted to give that small introduction. So of course, there's many different Sichas. The Sicha I'm going to be learning and learning together with you, is in Likkutei Sichos Chelik Yud Alef, volume 11. It's the second Sicha of Vayakhel, page 163 through 168. So if you're online, and if you go to chassidusapplied.com/immunity, you will find a PDF that you can either view or download, as well as an English source sheet of some of the main sources cited in this Sicha in Vayakhel. So we're going to learn it inside, and obviously apply it to life in general, as the Rebbe does, but more specifically to our situation. And everything is hashgacha pratis, everything has these connections. Small introduction. In learning a Sicha of the Rebbe, you have to appreciate that the Rebbe said a Sicha was encompassing kol ha'Torah kula, a walking encyclopedia. The Rebbe would mix pshat, remez, drush, sod, all the different levels. Obviously, a Sicha like this is primarily pshuta shel mikra, as we'll talk about in a moment, Rashi, but there's always context. This Sicha is taken from Vayakhel Pekudei Tovshin Lamed Alef, 1971. It's when the Rebbe delivered the Sicha. It was right after Purim. And the theme of the Sicha, and put it into simple English, is pose a provocative question. What defines ownership? What defines that somebody owns any entity? So we know there's many different answers to that. That can be through purchase, through inheritance, through ingenuity, and through business. And I believe that question is especially pertinent today. Here suddenly we were living in this comfortable world where people owned property, a lot of people make money, we had our comforts, we all have our luxuries, we all have our so-called equity. And suddenly, overnight, everything turned over. Doesn't matter how much money in the world you have. Doesn't matter how many properties belong to you. You start wondering, which everyone's asking the question, what's going to be? Who's in control? We had the illusion of control. So in this Sicha, the Rebbe touches upon a theme that is a fundamental theme, often underappreciated in Yiddishkeit in general, and is the theme of Mesiras Nefesh for something. Kiven shemosa nafshi aleh, or here the lashon will be kiven shenosa nafshi something. What is the central point? Before we learn it inside, the central point is that you can work on something, work on a project, and it's yours because you spent money, energy, time, you acquired, you created something. So you created something seemingly that you own that. Comes here a new introduction in Torah, and we find it in a number of places. Here we're going to be talking about Betzalel and the Odin. We find the concept of, no, it's not just who did it, who committed themselves, who dedicated themselves with their heart and soul, what we call Mesiras Nefesh, with complete unwavering commitment, and that is the person who's considered to be the so-called, I don't want to say owner, but the person who considered the whole thing is named after him. We say it on Moshe, Zichru Teiras Moshe Avdi. The Teiras Hashem's Teirah. How do you call it Moshe Avdi, the Teirah of Moshe Avdi? Kivin Shemosa Nafshe Aleha. Since he sacrificed his life for it. So then we call it on his name. Esther, Megillah Esther, she was Mesa Nefesh. You find it on Aaron, you find it on David HaMelech, in many different places. Here we're going to be focusing how we find it on Betzalel. And on what? On the single most important keli in the Mishkan, the foundation of the entire Mishkan, the Aron, in the Kodesh Kadoshim. And that's what the Rebbe speaks about, this idea. And when you broaden it into that context, we come away not just with an interpretation of Rashi, which is fascinating and beautiful, we also come away with a new understanding of what it means to control something. And as we shall see, that it's when you give up control, that's when you get the greatest control. That, in a way, is the nutshell of the central theme of this Sicha. So let's begin. It's on page 163 if you're following along in Likkutei Sichos, in the volume 11 again, or in the PDFs. And let's learn together. And Teira Mevi Refuah Le'ela, may these be the Sichos for Refuah Shalema, for all those that are in need of Refuah Shalema, and protect the rest of us from even needing any type of intervention or any type of refuah. So in the posuk, ala posuk in Vayakhel, if you're following along with in the source sheet, the first quote is going to be the Parsha in the beginning, Lamed Zayin Alef, which is right at the beginning of Vayakhel. It says Vayaz Betzal es ha'odin, not right in the beginning, a little later. Vayaz Betzal es ha'odin. Betzal made the ark. So what does Rashi say? So this, of course, goes into the Rebbe's biggest chiddush of innovation of Rashi, which began in Tafshei Chav Hey, after the Rebbe Tzachana's Istalkos. And the Rebbe is going to explain Rashi in this revolutionary way, the real dimension of Pshutis Shal Mikra, basic Pshat for a Ben Chomesh Shal Mikra, for a child in Rashi. So what does Rashi say in the Pasuk Vayaz Betzalel? Vayaz Betzalel, says Rashi, Lefi shenosa nafshe ala malocha, because he committed himself, he dedicated himself, he gave himself over to this work of the Adon, Yeser Mishar Chachamim, more wholeheartedly than all the other wise men, meaning the other wise men that helped build the Mishkan and were creative, and the designers and so on. Nikras Ashmei, it's called on his name. So right there, just think about that for a moment. An Adon, this is Kodesh Kadoshim. The Eibishter's Mishkan is called on the name of Betzal. Why? Because Nosen Nafshe Ala Malocha Yeser Mishar Chachamim. That's Rashi. So right there you have a tremendous concept. And the Rebbe explains now, using the commentaries that exist. There are different commentaries on Rashi that the Rebbe would always refer to, and often pointed out that either inadequate or not complete, or didn't completely address the issue of Pshat. So the Rebbe says, Umuvan shekavonis Rashi bepirush zeh. Why is Rashi, what is he coming to say in this Pirush? And he says, this comes from the Sifsei Chachamim, look at order 3, Pirush HaSifsei Chachamim. Liyashiv shayla pshuta mesereres ba'atevis v'yaz betzalel. Remember, Rashi doesn't come to give commentary with his own need. There's a problem here. He's coming to answer, the Rebbe says, B'pashtus, a simple question that is aroused, that comes to mind when we see the word Vayaz Betzalel. Betzalel made the Odin. So the question is this: why is the Odin different from all the other kelim, the other vessels in the Mishkan? The Dafka here it says that Vayaz Betzalel. When you look at all the other vessels, the Meneda and so on, it just says Vayas. So there's a question. It should have just said Vayas es Odin, a question that even a child would ask. Rashi says the Rebbe from the Sifsei Chachamim Shalafisha Nosa Nafsha Amalochis Odin Yesem Meshar Chachamim Nikras Al Shmei. That because he did something unique regarding the Odin, as unlike the other Kalim, he invested himself wholeheartedly. Nosa Nafshe, wholeheartedly, whole soulfully, in every possible way, more than the other Chachamim, the wise men. Therefore, it's called in his name. So that's the answer. Why it says Vayaz B'tzal. The other Kalim, he did not commit himself in the same fashion. But the Rebbe, of course, says it's not sufficient. However, we have to understand. Halay move on. The Afshe Beklolos Malachas HaMishkan Mishtatfu Kol Ish Chacham Lev Hayedim Bezeh. That although it's obvious that in all the different work of the Mishkan, the building of the Mishkan, all Ish Chacham Lev Hayedim Bezeh, everybody that was an expert in their particular field was participated in it. It was a big structure, many different kalim, you needed many different skills and skill sets. In any natural mean, it's impossible that every one of the people who participated, the craftsmen, and the people who dedicated their different skills, that everyone participated in every particular type of work. That's not possible to say. Each one did their part. Each one took, it was like a division of labor. Each one did their part. Each one in their particular specific way. So based on that nobody did everything, based on that, you can interpret the pasuk very simply. You don't need to rely on a special Mesiras Nefesh, a special dedication that the other Chacham and the other wise ones didn't have. You can simply say, very simple. There were different parts of the Mishkan. Each one focused on a different part. B'Tzalel took upon himself to work on the Odin. That's why it says V'yaz B'Tzalel. That's the Odin. The other parts of the Mishkan, he didn't dedicate himself. He didn't put that work in. So why can't we simply say like that? So the Rebbe qualifies now. V'av shebavad yishtatev B'Tzalel shoyiresh l'chol chachmei lev. Shari mole eisei ruchei elikim b'chachmei lasis b'kel meleches machshavas. Even though it's certain that B'Tzalel didn't just make the Odin, he definitely participated in all aspects of the work. He oversaw it, he directed it, he guided it, and so on. Because he was a Reish L'Kol Chachmei Lev. He was appointed the architect by Hashem through Moshe Rabbeinu. So B'Mele, he would participate in everything, or at least gave guidance. The loiba odin bavad, not just the odin. So then, if that's the case, so then back to this original question: if he participated in everything, then why dafka the odin? Makom mokim yesh lefarish. Nevertheless, you can explain sha'odin hoyakel aklei yechidi shu ose ba'atzmei. That the odin was the only one that he did by himself. The others he participated in. Oy sharak odin also b'lisi yu azulase. Or a little differently. That not he was the only one. It was the only one that he did without anyone's help. It's a little slight different way of interpreting it. So the other ones was with help. This was the only one completely B'Tzalel's work. V'atamazeh, what was the reason? Why takeb the odin? Gam kemum lefi pshut shamikre. You don't need to have any interpretation. The simple verse explains why by the odin did he dedicate himself more to do the work himself and not get anyone else's help. The odin, the ark, was the primary and the holiest of all the vessels in the sanctuary. That's why dafka that was done dafka by B'Tzalel, the head craftsman, the head architect. The one that was the wisest and the primary craft expert from all those that build the Mishkan. In Ha'ara, the Rebbe says, in Ha'ara 8, the Rebbe points out that either way you have to say it. Even according to Rashi you have to say it, because the question then is, even according to Rashi, that says it's not due to the fact that he made it himself without help, but it was because he was so dedicated to it wholeheartedly. You also have to explain why dafka the and why wasn't he dedicated to the other kalim in the same intensity. So either way you have to say this. So bottom line is, so the question remains now. Since the Odin was the primary vessel, And Betzalel was the primary architect, therefore he put most of his energy, or he put in the Aron, he did it himself without the help of others. So back to the question, if so, we can wonder, what forced Rashi, what caused Rashi to interpret the pasuk not from the simple practical explanation, the Vayas Betzalel Hainosh Ose Mamish. The Vayas means, not that it needs an interpretation, it's Ki'ilu. Nikras al Shmei, it's called his name because he so wholeheartedly was invested in it, but because he actually did it. Ulafarish HaMalocha Rak Nikras al Shmei. And what forces him to say no? He didn't do it. That because he dedicated Nosa Nafshi Alav, that's why it's called on his name, Lefisha Nosa Nafshi Ala Malachim. Which seems to be not the simplest interpretation. In other words, it didn't that he made it, but it's because of his commitment to it, making it, the Mesiras that he had, the Nisan, the Nosa Nafshi. Gam Tzarech Lahavin, another question that Rebbe poses. Mekivin Shakosav Emer Vayaz Betzalel. Since the pasuk says Vayaz Betzalel, the Betzalel built it, made it. If you look at Rashi, he says Nasa Nafshi Ala Malacha. Why is Rashi changing the lashon? The pasuk it says Asiyah, not Malacha, and he says Nasa Nafshi Ala Malacha. Should have said Ala Asiyah. Page 164, Siv Beis. And the Rebbe is going to answer this by explaining that there's no way you can say the next section that the Aron was built by Betzalel alone, or primarily by Betzalel without help from others. And the Rebbe brings a raya, a fascinating raya from another Rashi. So, and since Betzalel could not have built the Aron alone, so what we're left with is that had to be, since it says V'yaz Betzalel, it can't be because he built it himself, it's because Nikras Hashmei, because of his Nos Nafshei Ala Malachim. So the Rebbe explains like this. The calls it Bahagda Mashkos of Rashi Parsha Truma Benigela Kaperes Ha'Aron. We'll understand this by prefacing what Rashi writes a few chapters back. Benigela the Kaperes Ha'Aron, the cover on the Aron. So what do we learn? V'afal pishlei nosen shiur leiveha pirshu rabbeinu shoy eiveha tefach. This is Rashi. The Rashi in Parsha Truma Chof Hey Yud Zayin 25:17. What does Rashi say? That even though the Torah does not give us the measure of exactly how thick the kaperis was, how thick was it? Was it a millimeter? How thick was it? Pirshu rabbeinu, they do give us an explanation. Shoy eiveha tefach. It was a tefach, which is quite wide. A tefach. Seemingly, why does Rashi have to come and add that? What's missing? What's not understood? That he feels he has to add the measure and the thickness of the cover, the kaperis on the Aron. By the other containers, we don't find a thickness. So why suddenly here does Rashi feel the need to come explain it? And specifically because there's no, the verse itself, which is Pshut Shemikah, doesn't indicate anything. As Rashi himself says, Pirshu Rabbeinu, the Rabbeinu, our sages taught us what it is. So what compels Rashi to come tell us the thickness? Says the Rebbe, that with this he comes to explain, b'derech hagav, parenthetically, lo meshina koser b'loshen atzivi d'asiyas ha'aron. Why did the pasuk change the language when it comes to building the Aron and writes va'osu loshen rabin, va'osu, that you as a plural, shall build the Aron, the ark, asay shittim, from acacia of wood. The loikat zivuim d'asiyas sharakel, not like the commands in the other containers, vessels. There it says Vasisa, Loshen Yachid. So there's a problem. There's a problem in Pshutei Shemikra. Why does it say Va'asu? That more than one person build the Aron. Everywhere else it says Vasisa. That's the question. Because the meaning of Vasisa, it's understandable, it doesn't mean literally Shemesha Levade Yia Esa B'Peil, That Moshe himself should be the one that builds it in actuality. And it's also an impossibility that one person, Moshe, in any natural way, should do all the malachas, one person. So what does it mean, Vasisa? It says explicitly that it should be done by kol ish chacham lev. By every person who has a craft or a skill should do it. So you see, it's not just one person. So when it says Vasisa, cannot mean that it means just one person. Moreover, Rashi says, Rashi in Pekudei 39:33, Lametes Lamed Gimel says that Moshe didn't do any work in the Mishkan. So clearly Vasisa can't be going on Moshe Rabbeinu. You see how the Rebbe builds it up. First of all, one person can do it. Second of all, it says Kol Chacham Lev. Third of all, it says Beferish and Rashi, Moshe did not do any work. And since this command, Vasisa, to do, to build, most of the times at least, and from there we can learn all the places that it says Vasisa Loshen Yachid, individual. You can't interpret that that means that Moshe is responsible to do that work, that one person. That he should command that all the work in the Mishkan should be done. Umotzinu kvar in the barakas the Rebbe adds, umotzinu kvar shaloshin al dvar vasisim asim gambim lo yasa hadover k'mo yodav mamash. Just to make it a little gishmaker, because then what's the word vasisa? Since it's not him doing it, he's only directing. So why vasisa? So the Rebbe says we find already that vasisa fits even if you're not doing it with your own hands. Umucher chuba mashakos vayhi bein ir. We find that by he bein ir by Kayin. That Cain went to build a city. Is it possible one person should build a complete city? You can't say that. It was built according to his instructions, according to his guidance, according to his command. So that covers that. The vasisa does not mean one person does it. It means Moshe oversaw, guided, and instructed it to be done. So since all the vasisa means not one person did it, but more than one, the chachmei lev. So why suddenly by Adon it says va'asu? If asu meaning that you need more than one by all of them, it should say va'asu everywhere. And if va'asisa means more than one, you could have said va'asu va'asisa on the Adon. This compels Rashi to say, on page 165, that this is the Chiddush Nasiyas on v'osol Loshen Rabim. The fact that it says osol Loshen Rabim means that more than all other vessels in the Mishkan, the Adon needed more than all the others. All of them needed more than one person to build it. But the Adon, the va'osu comes to emphasize that there was a special emphasis on having more people involved. Why? The pasuk changes and says va'asu Loshen Rabim to indicate that it cannot be done by one person, it has to be done by Rabim, by many. Whereas by the other vessels, vasisa can include either individual or many, as we said before. So the question now is why? What made the Aron unique that you needed that Rabim? Well, liyashiv al derech hapshat hakusha manishtana Aron mishara kelim bezeh. And to answer that question, what distinguishes the Aron from the other containers? He has to explain what's in the Aron that needs a special, more people involved, more laborers involved. Even though this detail, what makes the Aron unique is not found except in the oral Torah, the Rabbeinu. And that's why Rashi cites the interpretation from our sages, and prefaces with an arichas, with a length, relatively. Even though no shear, no measurement was given how thick it should be, kan shani, So in other words, no measurement was given. Here it's different. Shapirushe loy amru kim pirshu. Not Rabbi Seinu said. Pirshu, they explained. Rabbi Seinu shaya evi tefach. That his stick was a tefach. Umuvim b'pashtus. That this is going to explain now why you needed more than one individual. You needed specifically many for the Orden. Umuvim b'pashtus ein b'keicha shelo mechad lavid lasses chaticha zov rabas mishkol kazeh. It's self-understood that it's not possible. A person doesn't have the power to work on and to make one piece of gold. It was that thick, that weight, and that thick. Hakelela zov hakapetis v'azov rav shememenu nasa shnei akruvim. Because it includes the zov, the gold of the kapetis, and the gold from which the kapetis emerged the kruvim, the cherubs. Because it was so thick and so heavy, it was no way that one person could do it without the help of others. And that's why it says v'asu l'shenabim. So Rashi is very mechiach that the Orden is unique. No way that one person could do it. So now qualification. By the kroshim, by the beams, it also says v'asisas hakroshim loshen yochid. They were unable to lift it up, to raise them, because of the heaviness of the beams. So then it should have said there also vasu. Why does it say vasisa? And if it says vasisa here, why can't it say vasisa by the Orden? There the discussion that they're talking about the building of it, the making of it. Is mushkav. You can make the kroshim and they could be lying on their flat. You don't have to lift them up. So there it could be vasisa. And it's pshita, simple. That it doesn't have any similarity to the necessity that had to be done when your kaperis couldn't be left on the ground. It had to be lifted from the karka, from the earth, and be placed on the Orden, as it was with the kaperis. And the Rebbe in the footnote 25 explains that the Adonim too are like the kroshim, not necessarily that it had to be lifted up. Okay. So now we go to Siv Gimel. So what do we establish so far? We've established that Rashi explains that the Orden cannot have been made by one person because of the thickness. So of course this is going to come back to tell us now why you can't say, and it says Va'osu Vayaz B'Tzalel, that it's because he built it himself. That's what the Rebbe goes on now to explain. According to the above, in our Parsha. So if we're going to say as the Rebbe wanted the Havamina to say, not like the Meforshim, not like Rashi, meaning not that he built it himself, if you're going to interpret that he himself built it, a question arises. So if the Chomesh Mikra would see, Rashi says nothing, but says Vayaz B'Tzalel, as if he himself built it, but we know before it said Va'asu, that it need to be done by a rabbin, by a number of people. And additionally, and primarily, it's impossible to be made by one person, as we just explained with the thickness of the kaperis. Or Lechem Mefarish Rashi, that's why Rashi does not leave the pasuk untouched, because you can't interpret that Vayas means Betzal himself made it. Lechem Mefarish Rashi, Vayas Betzal hu leikip shutei, does not mean literally he made it. Because he dedicated himself wholeheartedly, he committed himself more than all the others. That's why it says Betzalel, Vayaz Betzalel, is called on his name. Not because he made it himself, but because he committed himself to the making of it, to the work of that Orden. So now it goes back 1 second. And what about the other Chachmei Lev? Did they not commit themselves? Did they not know they're building an Orden? You're talking about the most important element in the Mishkan, the place with the Kedesh Kadoshim, the place with the Aditi L'Choshama. Shnei Badei Ha'aron, that's where God spoke to Moshe, God spoke to the Jewish people. The holiest place. What do you think? They also didn't have that commitment. They committed nosul libay, their hearts raised to come to, they were eager and with passion and excitement to build the Mishkan. So when it came to the Adon, of course they had that commitment. And that's the diuk. He doesn't say B'tzal Nosson Nafshel and therefore Nikras Hashmei. It says Yeser Mesharach Chachamim. More than them. That means they also had a wholehearted commitment. But his was extraordinary. An extraordinary commitment to it. Yeser Mesharach Chachamim. Omnam Adayin Sarach Lahavan Li'idar Gisa. Now we have to understand on the other side of things, on the other hand, B'kiv and She'ik could be Yisun My Loshe Shal B'tzal V'yichudei Hoye B'tafkidei Ulahedis Nosen B'libei. Being that the quality, the virtue, the feature of B'tzal and his uniqueness was in his position, his role, to the Hedis Nosen B'libei, to indicate, to guide, to direct. Hainu Shul Hoye Mudam Umadricham shall call Ish Chacham Lev. Page 166. That means he was their guide, he was their teacher, he was their mentor. Of each one of the Ish Chacham Lev, all the craftsmen, all these skilled workers. B'chol, in every work possible. This needs a particular quality, a particular quality of leadership. Nesav lashleim is b'chachma b'tfunu b'das, because one thing is having the mila that he had b'chachma b'tfunu b'das. He had chachma bina and das. He was able to conceive, comprehend, and conclude, come to a clarity, as explained in different places. In addition to that, you need leadership here, because he's not doing it himself. You see, when you see a team, individuals who are doing work, some of them are geniuses, but put them in charge of others, and it won't work. It just won't work. Here, B'tzal had, in addition to his own Chachma Tfuna V'das, the ability to direct, guide, not just plain lay people, skilled people. That needs a particular skill, as we know. So now we go back to the question. So then for sure, just as we asked before that they had commitment, but it was not as strong as the commitment of B'tzal also had commitment and Nosa Nafshe and all the Kalim, because he directed them all. And he had that special quality to direct them. So why then, going back to the question, so why Dafka, by the Odin does it say Vayas B'tzal, should say Vayas B'tzal on all the Klei HaMishkan? Because he committed himself to all of them. Why by the Odin uniquely? So this you have to say in addition to what the Rebbe said earlier already, because the Odin was a special Keli, more than all the others, but this still does not suffice why you didn't have Nosson Lafshe and the others. You could say more in the Odin than the others. So the Rebbe is not going there. We say the Odin has more commitment than the others because the Odin is the central piece, central cornerstone of the Mishkan. But now the question is, but why can't you say Nosson Nafshe and the others? Other Kelim. And that's why Rashi is medayik, he emphasizes, because he committed himself on the melacha. Remember the diuk, melacha, not asiyah. Melacha means on the work, not asiyah, as we're going to see the distinction in a moment. Now the Rebbe is going to explain the difference between melacha and asiyah. The yesh hefresh, betechna shal beis l'shem neselu. The pasuk says v'yaz batzal, so Pashas Rashi should have said, so nosen nafshe al asiyah. The fact that he says al malacha, the Rebbe says you can explain the difference as follows. Hageder shel asiyas eze dover kelol b'mashma'aseh es kol hapratim shal yodam nigmer nishma hadavar ahu. When you say the asiyah of something, the building of something, the crafting of something, the creation of something, maybe is the best word. Creation is a very broad term, as he's going to explain in a moment. Inside, let me just tell it to you about Pev first. What does asiyah mean? Everything. The study, the training, the instruction, not just the actual work. Everything. Shal yodam nigru nishla davrahu. Hainu l'rab is gam protim shenim pulus malachas. Which means comes to indicate even details that are not actual work. Because when you combine them all, you have the creation of something. So when you need to create something, we know, you don't just build a house. Just to use a moshel. You need to have an architect with a vision. You need to create blueprints. You need to lay out the different images. You need to bring the contractors. All this before you even begin to work. You need strategy, planning, materials, guidance, training, experts. All that's necessary for creation. Ukepirish Rashi b'maisa bereshis. Rebbe brings a raya from Rashi. Again, emphasize Rashi. Vayas, when it says by the Eibishter creator, tiknu al omde, tiknu b'tzivyenum u'keimosam. When the Eibishter Vayas comes to say that he didn't just build it, he perfected it, made it stand strong. Each person, each item, each creation in its perfect form and shape and upright. So you see from there, Vayas doesn't just mean the malach; it means the full picture. So when you come back and say, "Here, I built you a home," I don't just want to hear the detail of work. I want to get the whole picture. So b'meila, when you say asiyas hamishkan, the same thing. But asiyah klula like avedus malachas hamishkan, in asiyah, in the work, is not just encompassed. The work, the actual building, in other words, using the hard labor of building it. Kim gam kol shara protim anachutzim lebinyan hamishkan v'kelev. But it also includes all other necessary details for building the Mishkan, the sanctuary, and its vessels. Ubecholam gam al limud v'hayra al abin v'amalach, including the limud, the training, the education, v'hayra, and direction and guidance on the building and on the work. Mashenk and malacha is a different meaning. Malacha is a far more narrower in the definition. Pirusha aveda u'pu'ula. Malacha means malecha, the work I did. Not just the asiyah, the creation, the work necessary, the work component in the creation. V'cheinu b'negela melechas hamishkan. When you say melechas hamishkan, haveda v'apula sheisa b'mishkan. In the malacha, the actual work, not all the other details. Listen to this proof. So Rebbe bring now a proof from Rashi himself. The Rashi is Parsha saying Lamed Hey Beis 35:2. Higdim lehem hazoras Shabbos litzivim melechas hamishkan. Right in the beginning of Vayakhel, it says there Vayakhel talks about Shabbos, and then comes melechas hamishkan. What's the connection? Why they're besmichus? Why they come after another? So Rashi says he prefaced the Hazoras Shabbos, the laws of Shabbos, litzivim melechas hamishkan, to the command to build a Mishkan, to tell you that the malacha, a Mishkan, does not push away Shabbos. So by saying right away, here are the laws of Shabbos, here are the laws that you're not allowed to do the work, and then the Melechas HaMishkan comes to teach us that work in the Mishkan is not allowed on Shabbos. Melechas HaMishkan, not the work in the Melechas, the building of the Mishkan. There's a lot more to the Mishkan than just the actual building of the Mishkan. Everything that was in the creation of it is not. I'm sorry, the Nigan is a different one. How could you say that? That it's not Deicha Shabbos? A lot of details that are mutar b'Shabbos. Ubefrat halimud. Especially the learning. You're allowed to learn Hilchas Shabbos on Hilchas Melechas HaMishkan on Shabbos. We read on Shabbos about the Melechas HaMishkan. Ela dezeu diagrasha letzivi Melechas HaMishkan HaMelacha bepeil. So Rashi says Higdal Azor Shabbos letzivi Melechas. If he said letzivi Asiyas HaMishkan, it wouldn't work because Asiyas HaMishkan has details that can be done on Shabbos. But that's why Rashi says Melechas HaMishkan, because the Melacha dafke, the actual work, that's not allowed on Shabbos. V'cheinu b'nidin dedan. And that's also in our case. Nesinas nafshei amiyuchedesh shel betzalel b'negei la'aron, the commitment, this unique and specific commitment, and a complete hismasus, complete dedication, devotion, wholehearted, soulful connection of Betzalel to the Aron. I was al Melechas ha'Aron. So the other Klei HaMishkan, you could say, he was also wholeheartedly dedicated, and he guided them, as we said earlier. But there, it's on the general picture. When it came to the Aron, there was an additional component, the Malacha. He put specific energy and commitment in the Malacha itself, the work of the building of the Aron. Now, what remains still unclear exactly, and we're now going to learn the Yainashal Teda, which of course brings it all alive, is we know why, because the Aron was the primary Keli. We know the Melacha, of course, is even more dedicated when you're really connected to something. You don't just oversee the actual building of it, the creation of it, but you're also dedicated to making sure that the specific details, like you ever see when you're really in love, let's say in a house that's being built, even though you have builders, but the parts that in that building that you really committed to, you actually go there and give special attention, a special supervision, a special focus on the malacha, not just the asiyah. The asiyah is the guidance. The guidance was on all the Klei HaMishkan. But when it came to the Aron, there was a specific Mesiras Nefesh also on the actual malacha of it. So this Atkan is the Pirush Rashi Pshuta Shamikra. Now comes the second part now, is the Yainashal Teda, Primus HaTeda. Briefly, I'll say it briefly and then we'll learn it inside. The Rebbe is going to talk now about Mesiras Nefesh. Because what we come away from this is, if you recall the opening question I posed, was what was Nikras al Shmei? What is called on your name? What do you own? They say, and let's just give a moshel, they say, Moses Mendelssohn. He was a... I'm sorry, no. Moses Montefiore. Plitas Apeh. No pun intended. Moses Montefiore, he was a big Baal Tzedakah, he built a lot of Yerushalayim. So Queen Elizabeth once asked him, Queen Victoria asked him, how much are you worth? He was a very wealthy man. So he said, I'll come back to you. He came back with a number, and a number that she looked at him, she says, you mock me, Sir Moses. I personally know you have much more money than that. She said, you asked me how much I own. The money I have is right now my possession. It can be lost at war, it can be lost to illness, it can be lost in many different ways. You can confiscate it, many things can happen to it. I gave you the number that I truly own. It's the money I gave away to charity. Because the institutions, the hospitals, the buildings that I built are forever built as what I want it to be. And that nobody can take away. So in other words, what is real ownership? The only one owner in this world, the Eibishter. It is when you're moiser nefesh for something, which means you're giving your whole soul, committed to something that's not about you, that's beyond you, that in turn creates nikras al shmei. More than if you built it yourself. So that is what Betzalel added. Not besides the fact that he couldn't just build it himself because the heaviness and everything else we discussed, it was the Mesiras Nefesh. And now the Rebbe is going to explain the power of Mesiras Nefesh. And uncannily so relevant to our time as well. How Mesiras Nefesh is not just a deep emotional and spiritual connection to something beyond us. It actually changes who we are. Even our systems, including our immune system, is affected by it. The Rebbe doesn't use that word, an expression, but it's definitely implied once you read it properly. So let's learn it inside. Hayainashal Teda shebepirish Rashi zeh, Siv Daled on page 166. Hakeich de Mesiras Nefesh hu lamayl makol keiches ha'adam. Mesiras Nefesh is higher than all faculties of a person. Let's just explain for a minute what that means before I read. We all have many faculties. Generally speaking, we have 10 faculties. Chochmah through Malchus, Meichin Midas. We have faculties of seeing and hearing. These are faculties that are very localized and very specific. There's a koyach of Mesiras Nefesh that if you don't have Mesiras Nefesh, all these faculties can be very powerful, but they're specific and they're limited. Mesiras Nefesh in simple English means you're ready to go all the way. Chachma, why does Chachma go all the way? It goes as much as it wants to go to conceive of something. Same thing, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gvura, Teferes. When you have Mesiras Nefesh, you go all the way. Because it's not about you and your interest, even if it's a good interest, even if it's Chachma de Kedusha or Bina de Kedusha. Because it's about doing something not for you, but L'Shem Hashamayim, Mesiras Nefesh. B'chol ma'oitcha, not just b'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha. So the Rebbe says it's higher than all faculties for that reason. Heina makifim veheina pnimim. Higher than the makif, the keiches like tainug and rotzen. Veheina pnimim like meichin and midas. Omnam tachlis hakavona hi. However, and this is critical, the ultimate purpose is not Mesiras Nefesh should be relegated to particular times. Because many people think Mesiras Nefesh is when there's a time of danger, or when there's a gzeira, or you put to the test. Either, God forbid, you're going to bow down to Avodah Zarah. You say, Moshe Nafsh al Kiddush Hashem. So it's unique times, rare times, and it's very isolated. Says the Rebbe, no. The ultimate kavanah shekeich Mesiras Nefesh yachder tech kol keiches ha'adam should pierce and penetrate all the faculties of a person ad lekeich hachi tachten, till his lowest faculty, meaning maisa bepeil, keich ha-maisa, action. Shegam ha'asiyas v'ha'pu'ula shaloi tiyena masimis l'tnuas ha-Mesiras Nefesh shaloi. That also his actions and his and activities should also be consistent, aligned with to the Tenuah, the movement of Mesiras Nefesh. And that's a big chiddush. Because as I said, you could say Mesiras Nefesh, at rare times you have Mesiras Nefesh. But it's not something of a regular day. Aveda Kesidram. We're not talking about Musaf and Kil Chosim. At Tmid and Kesidram, regular Seder Aveda is with measure. Not every day is Yom Kippur. Not every day is Simchas Torah. Not every day is Purim. Adal Yoda. So you think, okay, so those are days. They infuse the rest of the year. Says no. They have to infuse, Mesiras Nefesh has to infuse all the keiches. You have to join them together. They come together. That means the keiches themselves get elevated to a level of tremendous commitment and passion through Mesiras Nefesh. And this is what Rashi hints in the Mesiras Nefesh of Betzalel and the Oren. Even though Rashi says the Los and Noshan Nafshe, the Rebbe uses Mesiras Nefesh. Some places it says Moshe Nafshe, not in this Rashi, but the Rebbe is not medayik in that. I'm just pointing it out. Well, so that's what happens. This now explains why the word Malacha. Because it's not enough it should just be a Mesiras Nefesh on the creation of the project. Malacha is asiyah b'peil. That means the Mesiras Nefesh is coming all the way. It was coming all the way down to the actual crafting of the Odin in its detail, in its actual work. That when you looked at the work, you saw this was a different level. So you could have two people do a job, talking about malacha, and one of them that has the Mesiras Nefesh and it's cheder, it pierces and it penetrates and infuses even the actual practical work is a completely different level. And that's why Rashi is Madayik Malacha, because it shows if when Malacha, then it goes through all the keiches. But even the lowest keich HaMaisa, where you could think it's keich HaMaisa, just, Maisa Kof. Just do the work. Who says it has to be looking like Mesiras Nefesh? No, Mesiras Nefesh, the Achdus of Mesiras Nefesh has to penetrate and permeate everything. So the whole human being is lifted up, all his faculties, all his actions, even to the smallest detail. And through this, not only are his pu'ulas hakeches, the implementation of his faculties are on a different level. Due to the Mesiras Nefesh invested in them. This goes even more. It's not just the Mesiras Nefesh is infusing. Also the keiches b'tzadin yonem heim, even as they are in their personality, as I mentioned before, every faculty has its parameters, has its definitions. It's not Mesiras Nefesh by definition, it has limitations. K'fi shem keiches protim b'tchunas protis, as they are specific faculties with particular features. Misalim ha'yedei l'darga nailis yeser. They elevate to a much higher level. V'zeu sherashi mamshich yeser mishar chachamim. So not just Yeser Mishar Chachamim, meaning that he had a commitment more than the other Chachamim. Shadei Mesiras Nefesh in the taste of Yisrael B'Kol HaKeiches Ad L'Keich Hachi Elyon Keich HaChachma. So the Rebbe's medayik, listen to this diik. Yeser Mishar Chachamim, that the Chachamim Shu B'chinis Yeser Mekfi Shachachmim Mitzad Atzma. The other Chachamim were also committed. That was a Chachma with limits. when it comes to Mesiras Nefesh that Tzal had, Yesem Meshar Chachamim, meaning his Chachma was on a higher level, that even Chachma became more than regular Chachma. No, it's not like it is by the other Chacham, who did not give of their whole soul as he did in this matter. As we also know from the Maimer, from the statement, there's no wise person like a person with experience. So you could be a Chacham, you can know everything, but you don't have experience. But through the Mesiras Nefesh coming into experience, you actually experience it in reality and in the ground. So ein Chacham Bal Nisayin, meaning there's a Chacham that's not a Bal Nisayin, but ein Chacham Bal Nisayin. If you want the Chacham that comes from experience is a whole different level, because experience comes down into Maisa B'Peil. And there's no Chachma like that. That's a higher level of Chachma. U'Mesayim Rashi Nikras al Shmei. And here's the Primis Dikadiyuk. Shakol Zeh Nasa Lefi Sha'idei Mesiras Nefesh Mamshichim Nikras B'chinas HaKeser. Keser is the level of Shmei. Shenikras al Shmei. Nikras means Mamshich. That Nikras al Shmei, that through Mesiras Nefesh you draw down from Keser, which is Shmei. She al lamayla mekol asfiras apels bem nikras al shmoi. So he's drawing down shmoi al on all the faculties and affects them like we just said. L'chein gam benefesh adam hipaelis ili bekol hakeches. And that's why also in the spirit of man, it causes an ili, an elevation in all the faculties. Shenishtalshel mehem asfiras de lamayla. These spheres come from spheres lamayla. So in Parsha Te'esis, Keser is higher, of course. Chai Yechida is higher than the Keiches Pnimim. But through Mesiras Nefesh, what happens is you draw down from Keser into the Keiches. So Lamaila, that's Keser into the Eses Sfiris, or the 9 Sfiris. Eses Sfiris, depends how you touch it. And that's in Keiches HaAdam. Mesiras Nefesh draws down from Keser into our faculties, that the faculties themselves become a different level altogether. Now let me just explain this a few minutes, and then we'll conclude with the end and the lesson, of course, to our lives. What this simply means is, I remember once the Rebbe said in a Fabrengen, he asked a question. If two people are learning Torah, and one person is learning because he has Gishmak in learning, the other one doesn't have a Gishmak, he's learning more out of Kabbalah Sel. Because the Torah says you have to learn Torah, so he learns Torah. He tries his best to understand, but the other person is a real bar seichel and he really understands well. The Rebbe said, who's going to learn with more passion and commitment? So B'ashkafa Reshena, initially, ostensibly, it would seem the person who is gishmak, you enjoy learning, you're going to spend more time, you're going to invest more. The Kabbalah Selnik will learn as much as he doesn't have to work that hard. He'll be Yetzel, he'll do what has to be done. And the Rebbe said, no. True Kabbalah Sel, Mesiras Nefesh, means you learn even more than you want to learn. The Chochem, the Gishmak, who has a Gishmak, enjoys it. He's going to learn as much as he enjoys it. And when he stops enjoying it, he may not commit so much. The Baal Mesiras Nefesh, or true Kabbalah Sel, not Mitzvah Sanoshim Ulamoda, God forbid, not mechanical. He's going to continue learning even when he's not necessarily enjoying. He's going to keep going and going. In other words, Mesiras Nefesh makes your Chochmah also sharper. To translate it into more practical terms, concept of Shlichus. Shlichus was a concept of Mesiras Nefesh. Maybe not the Mesiras Nefesh from previous generations, but a Mesiras Nefesh to leave your home, to leave community, go to places that are completely devoid of Yiddishkeit, and build in Mamish in a barren desert, build a whole oasis, a blossoming empire as we see today. The Mesiras Nefesh was, of course, the driving force that everyone in the world still marvels and wonders. Where does that come from? But there's something even more powerful. If it was just Mesiras Nefesh and they went and it was completely done in a way like a Chassidus Shemalava Malka, you could say, okay, Mesiras Nefesh is strong, but they don't know how to build a structure. You travel the world and you see Mesiras, institutions, shluchim, excellent at administration, business administration, fundraising, education. Not necessarily trained, but the Mesiras Nefesh ignited and stimulated their faculties to work beyond most people's faculties would ever work. If there was no Mesiras Nefesh, many would have done their thing, and maybe some would be more successful, less successful, everyone according to their faculties. But when you infuse it with Mesiras Nefesh doesn't remain separate. But it becomes something that's the driving force, like a foundation in a building, that drives the shliach, that drives the committed one to completely dedicate, even beyond they would ever do in their comfort zone, because they're dedicating to a cause that's greater than themselves. Let's go back. Because true ownership, Nikras al Shemei, Mamshech Zayin Keser Lamata, is bringing the Yechida, bringing the Mesiras Nefesh from the highest levels into simple actions. So even how you run a mason, even how a simple thing is done on accounting, how you deal with a child, how you run, how you handle your employees, is all infused with Mesiras Nefesh. So everything is elevated on that level. So let me conclude with the last sif here, the last two sifim, which continues the theme, but now it explains, the Rebbe explains, and then I want to go back to this point about Mesiras Nefesh. The Rebbe explains now with this unique Mesiras Nefesh of Betzalel came from somewhere. It has a history, good genes. V'koyach sif hey, v'koyach Mesiras Nefesh al hazeh bola Betzalel b'Yerusha mavi ovav Chur. It came as an inheritance from his grandfather Chur. Shemosar nafshi limnei chet ha'egel. Chur gave his life, Mosar Nafshe, to prevent the Chet HaEgel, whatever he could do possible to prevent the sin of the golden calf. Shu eipech inyone shel HaMishkan. The Rebbe gives from the footnotes, the Maram came is what Chur did exactly. What was the Chet HaEgel? Matan Teira, as we know, is by Yerid Hashem al Har Sinai, the Shechina comes down below. The Mishkan would be the consummation of that. There's taka two opinions. When we say Basel Legani is the Mishkan or Matan Teira, and the Rebbe explains it's two stages of the same idea. But the Mishkan consummated as a permanent resting place. I mean, it was still a temporary sanctuary in the sense it moved about, mobile till it came to Yerushalayim, but it became now a Shchanti B'Seichon. Chet HaEgel was the antithesis, building a golden calf, a false god. Hepech Inyon Shel HaMishkan v'Shchanti B'Seichon. That's why, according to one opinion, the Mishkan came, well, there's different opinions, but all of them, that the command of the Mishkan came, so all the nations should know that they were forgiven the Ma'aseh Egel. What's the connection? Because the Egel was the antithesis of God resting among you, and here they banished God from themselves by building a golden calf. So Chur was Mesiras Nefesh on against the Chet HaEgel, meaning everything that's antithetical to the Mishkan. In different words, it means he wasn't just against the Egel, he was Mesiras Nefesh to have the Shechina here, and not that have an Egel, God forbid, that would impede that. That's why his grandson Betzalel also Mesiras Nefesh al Malachas Ha'odin. Sheboihu Ikar Agili de V'Shechanti B'Seichon. The day of the Ramban. That's why Betzalel, like his grandfather, Mosar Nafshe, on what? On the Orden, because that's where the main Shechina is. That's the primary place where the Shechina B'Shchanti B'Seichim is through the Orden. So it came from there. This Mesiras Nefesh, even that would affect even action. Not just as someone says, I have Mesiras Nefesh in my heart, the Jew at heart. A Mesiras Nefesh would affect every detail. That's why the Inyan Anal in the previous chapter, the previous sif, it's hinted to in the name of Betzalel and his father and his grandfather, Betzalel ben Uri ben Chur. So the Rebbe explains now, Pi Kabbalah, Pi Chassidus, Uri hu meloshen er, from the word er, light. Shuin yebchina zoh, that's zoh, midas. Oy chochme, reish is the Esser spheres, the beginning of the 10 spheres. V'chur meloshen nokov. Chur can also mean a hole, pierce a hole, a nokov. Pierce a hole. B'chinas hanukve. That's the level of malchus. Spheres HaMalchus. Sefer the kol dargen. Okay, so we have Ur is either Zoh or Chochmah, the top of the spheres. Chur is Malchus, the end of the spheres. Or Betzalel, hu inyan Botzel Keil, b'chinas shalamayla mikol anal, ke Keil hu chesed. Botzel Keil is the name. Keil is from the Yud Gimel Midas HaRachamim. That's higher than all the spheres. Kekelu chesed tchila zo, yemed ozl kul yem, oigam lamayla legamri mezol malchus. I correct myself. I said, Bechina shalamayla mikol anal. I thought that Rebbe meant mikol anal from all the levels, even chokhmah. It looks like not like that. Kel is chesed, tchila zo, yemed ozl kul yemed, the day, the level that brings within all the midas. Oigam lamayla legamri mezol malchus, memidus u'makol esas firis. Oh, yeah, I correct myself again. First he says it's the beginning of midas, so that would be in between Uri and Chor. Now he's saying, Oi, it's higher than everything. Shari Ushem Arishin Shib Yud Gimel Midas Harachmim, V'kolshkein Shetzel Kel, Makif V'atzel Shel Shem Kel Hu L'mayla Mikol Hanal. So Betzalel goes even higher than all of them. Mechuven the Inyan Hanal Shekecha Mesiras Nefesh Hu L'mayla Mikol HaKeches, Makifim U'pnimim. So it's consistent with what we said earlier. Mekech Nishan is higher than the Keches Makifim and Pnimim. That's the Mesiras Nefesh of Betzalel. V'zo Malchus, V'zo Legabe Malchus U'inyan Makif. Okay, so the Rebbe is explaining Makifim can be interpreted different ways. Zo and Malchus, Zo Legabe Malchus is like a Makif. V'hu Mamshim B'chinas Shalamayla Mekol HaSfir is B'chinas HaKeser. So it's not clear here whether it's also the Mesiras Nefesh of Chor goes on this, or it seems more that Betzalel, Chor is more Chochmah. And, Chor is more Malchus. Uri is Chochmah, and Betzalel is higher than all of them, so all of them include Makif and Primi. Remember, Makif and Primi are relative to each other, like he says here. Generally, Makif is Keser, and Primi is Chochmah through Malchus. But compared to Malchus, Zoh is a Makif. It's always the Makif of a higher level becomes the Primi of a lower level. The point being, the entire structure, both in the human faculties and the Seder Shtalshlus, are lifted up and infused with a completely different level of bittul through Mesiras Nefesh. Whereas even though they each have their they're all Kedusha, holiness, but they have their structure. Mesiras Nefesh is beyond structure. And that beyond structure elevates them all to become that they themselves become, structure itself becomes higher than structure. And the final sif that Rebbe explains with this, the end with the story with Betzalel and Moshe, so we know there's Moshe told Betzalel to first build the Kalim and then the Mishkan. Betzalel said that's not the order. First you build a building and then you bring in the Kalim. So the Rebbe says, Apizeh Yuvan, page 168, Gam Kenatam, Shemoshe Tziva LeBetzalel Lases Tchila Kalim V'achar Kach Mishkan. Now we'll understand the reason why Moshe told Betzalel first build the kelim and then afterwards the structure. What's going on here? What's the difference between them? As we just said, since Betzalel is Mesiras Nefesh, higher than Makif and higher than Pnimi. And Chassidus explains that Rebbe brings from Eratei, Vayakhel, and other places, that there in the shadish of everything, what's the kavanah? The kavanah is not makif. Makif is an energy that cannot be contained in the structure. So technically, if you talk about fire power, it's more powerful than pnimi. But what's the kavanah? Always pnimi. Dire betachtenim. The Eibishter wants alakus and pnimi. Shechanti b'seicham. So since it's in a place that's higher than makif and pnimim, so their pnimi is mushrish yesha because that's the kavanah. L'chein rotza Moshe sheyaseh tchila kelim. That's why Moshe said to him. Moshe began with the kavanah. Of course, technically build a mishkan first, but the kavanah is kelim. Ha-pnimim v'achar kach ha-mishkan makif. First you need the kelim. First you need the odin, meaning in the kavanah, and then they become the makifim that surround and bring their strength. Omnam Betzalel Omar, Betzalel responded, Sh'af shezeu dargose, even though this is Betzalel's level, Makom mokim at shemagila dargazu, until you reach this level, tzarech lalis memata l'mayla medarga l'darga. You can't just jump to the shadish of pnimim yeser. You have to go step by step. L'chein osas ha-mishkan tchila. First you build the mishkan, the makif. V'achar kach osa kelim. And afterwards the containers. Ki ba'avedus ha'adam tzrichim l'hamsher tchila b'chinas ha-makif. First you have to draw down the all-encompassing energy, the more transcendent energy, and then that makif affects the pnimim. So, what does this mean? Let me just explain this in simple terms, and then I want to go back to the relevance to our time here. First of all, Mesiras Nefesh, some people confuse with it being a koyach makif. Mesiras Nefesh is even higher than makifim, as is clear here. That what you have is Nefesh Ruach Neshama, which is Pnimim, Moichin Midas, Chabad Chagas Nihi, is Neshama Ruach Nefesh. These are internal, what we call immanent faculties. These are focused, localized, specific faculties, I discussed earlier. Then you have Chaya, which is usually Arich of Keser, and then Yechida is Atik of Keser. Yechida is sometimes associated with Mesiras Nefesh. Here he doesn't go into the specifics, but essentially Makif and Pnimi are both faculties that are necessary. For example, Rotzen, Chassidus explains, to want something is a Makif. Why? Because wanting something is not localized. Is the Rotzen in your hand? Is it in your head? Is it in your feet? Whatever you want, whether you want to walk, whether you want to talk, whether you want to think, whether you want to use your mind, is Rotzen. So Makif is more of so-called hovering faculties. Tainug is another hovering faculty. Pnimi is internal, specific. So when it comes to the Mishkan has both, explained in Mitzvahs Binyan Migdash and other places in Chassidus. You need both, Igulim and Yesher. Chassidus talks Sevav Kalam and Mamala Kalam. It's everywhere in Yiddishkeit. Tzitzis and Atalis. The lulav, the dalad minim, and the sukkah. What's makif and pnimi? Makif is an energy that is beyond us. So it connects us to a divine level that's beyond our natural ability to reach on our own. So it has very much divine strength, but it's mamaila from our kelim. Pnimi is the other way around. It's a lower energy because it's tailored and internalized, but we relate to it. Now we want both milas. You want to have the mila of Elyon, a makiv that's higher than our kelim, something that is very divine, very pure, transcendent, and then you want to have it on your terms. But how does Avodas Hashem work? You can't begin with makiv before pnimi. You have to go mamata lamayla. So what does that mean? That first you work on yourself and saying, you know what? I'm not going to be a selfish human being. I recognize that God created life. He created sustenance. And therefore, I should acknowledge him. I should show gratitude. Teiv li is the expression. Elokim, God is good for me. So that's an elokus on your level. That's called a pnimi. That's like avos Hashem. You relate, you love God because God helps you. God gives you life, protects you. Makif is already a divine that's beyond you. It's recognizing and appreciating God on God's terms. So that would be the usual process. But we also need sometimes to begin with makif. Because when you talk to children, don't have yet the kelim to be able to learn Avodas Hashem, Ava v'yireh b'pnimiyus. So you have a makif. You teach them brachas, general ideas of Emunah, moida ani is a makif. Hoidah. Pnimiyus is understanding, feeling. When you say, v'yadaitus Hashem, v'ashevesa levavecha. Makif is more of a general thing. So sometimes we say, anoshim pshutim, or children, have a certain Mesiras Nefesh that a Bar Seichel doesn't have. Why? Because Seichel can sometimes yastir it to Mesiras Nefesh. So we begin our lives first with a makif. Then as you grow, then comes the pnimim. And from the pnimi, then you reach the higher makifim. And it's a constant process. Alter Rebbe explains in the V'yadaita, Meschan, and Likkutei Sichos, that today's makif becomes tomorrow's pnimi, and tomorrow's pnimi becomes the makif for the next day. And you keep growing, and then you have a higher makif. It's like climbing a ladder. Today, the step above you, the horizon, you can't reach yet. Then you climb, that becomes internalized, and then you're ready to reach a higher level. Mesiras Nefesh of Betzalel infused it all and elevates makif, pnimi, and everything to a divine level, to an atzmizdika level. So when you say atzmus, sevav kalamim, mamala kalamim, you want to have an infusion of all of them. Mesiras Nefesh shouldn't remain separate and divorced from the rest of it. It elevates it all. Now let me bring it back to where we are right now. We're living now in a time where you could describe as completely an unknown. We have no clue what's going to be. That's why it's so unsettling, so unnerving. What will be tomorrow? So first of all, again, we pray to Hashem that everyone should be protected and everyone should be healed, and we should get over this whole aggravation. But b'derech hateva, this doesn't look like it's going away tomorrow, even though Tshus Hashem keref ayin. So what are we supposed to do in such a situation? Now, why is it so unsettling? Because life has been very comfortable. When's the last time we were so unnerved? When was the last time when the carpet was pulled out literally from everything? I remember 9/11. 9/11 was local. It didn't last long, and we grew from it. Here, every corner of the earth, no human being is immune. Every industry, travel, Pesach plans, education, the schools, the economy, you name it. And no one knows where it's going. So the brachas that we've had, in a way, have spoiled us. Because if you look at our history, the Jewish history, it was always our Mesiras Nefesh that connected us to a level. It was always our Mesiras Nefesh that connected us to a level that are able to deal with anything. We're going to be saying Pesach night, V'hi she'amda lanu. V'hi. What's V'hi she'amda lanu? B'chol der v'der b'yim alonu l'chalasenu. Emdim aleinu l'chalasenu. V'hi is either Emunah or the Haftacha. The Emunah and the Mesiras Nefesh is always what got us through. It was a super-rational connection to something that's not about logic. We did not need to really rely on that much, especially in the last generation. The Rebbe said in that Sicha Alef Nissan Mem Beis that I mentioned, there are a lot of brachas, major brachas in our time. The biggest one, of course, is we are free people. As Jewish people, we can be as Jewish and celebrate anything we want. We don't have the Gzeres, Hoyelesia, and the Shmodis of 80 years ago, of 100 years ago, of thousands of years ago. So we have all these blessings. And it can create a certain, lulled us into an illusion that, you know what, we're in control of our destiny. I'm not in any way suggesting, by the way, that this came because to wake us up. I'm just explaining why I think it's so unnerving. It was not unnerving when Jews were running for their lives and they knew that everything is based on V'hi she'amda, a higher power. Mesiras Nefesh was the driving force. And what happened with that Mesiras Nefesh, as difficult as life was, it immunized them. It gave them powerful strength. So now when we're in a situation where the carpet has been pulled out, we don't know what plans to make. We don't have plans. We don't have an idea who's in control, except the Eibishter. So we learn from Betzalel. We learn from the Sicha. Mesiras Nefesh. Nikras al Shmei. You want to really own something? It's not how much you have in your bank account. It's not how much you control. It's not how many employees you have. It's how much connection you have to that which is greater than you are. And that Mesiras Nefesh has to inform and infuse every detail of our lives, every specific. We have a tremendous opportunity now to rise to the occasion and to demonstrate and say, we've been here. We've been worse. And this does not minimize every loss, every illness is a tragedy. We're not trying to compare. But we have a lot to teach the world, 3,800 years of many, many challenges. As they were oppressed, that's how they flourished and they thrived. Where did that come from? What is the secret formula of Jewish survival? It was a connection to something that's greater. Nosan nafshe. We're ready to commit and give our lives to something greater than ourselves. So it's not our wisdom, and it's not our emotions, and it's not our actions. It's our Mesiras Nefesh, which in turn informs and infuses all those details, down to the action. Yes, it has to come down to an action. So we go over to somebody now and say, good morning. Or maybe you don't go over right now based on the guidelines, but on a phone call, or in an email message, or on social media, you express even more love based on the guidelines that we have today. And people will say, where are you getting this from? Is this some type of la la land? No, you say, no, this is our commitment that there is a God that's greater than all of us. And Nosa Nafshe, we give our lives for it. In this case, we're giving our lives, which means Mesiras Harotzen, our total commitment. And yes, it affects every detail of our lives. So it's no wonder that it actually does strengthen our immune system. That's not just a nice, cute line. It strengthens our chokhmah and our bina and our das and our chesed, gvura, teferes, netzach, ed, yesed, malchus. It strengthens our being. Because when you have that commitment, the sugibun the neighbor, you're tied above. What does it do? It builds confidence. We still have to be prudent and we have to be practical and we have to do what we're told. Rapi yerape. We have to nitn reshus l'reifel l'rapis, follow the guidelines of doctors, of health officials, of rabbonim, and so on. That goes without saying, because that guf is also what the Eibishter wants. That's how he wants to help us. But at the same time, we know that there's no reason to panic. There's no reason to be fearful because there's a higher force. That higher force has kept us here till this day. Hisha amdalandu. Just as it was then, it will be now. And we can teach this to ourselves, to our children, and to to everyone we come in contact with. I want to share one quick anecdote that happened with me personally. When I was a teenager, I had severe allergies. Hay fever, they call ragweed. One summer, I was I had almost an asthmatic attack. I needed some medication. I went to an allergist to do something about it. He gave me these scratches on the skin here, and two things blew up, the ragweed and dust. It was so intense that I literally had a severe reaction right there. So the doctor, Dr. Redner was his name, he gave me an injection of something, and everything cleared up. Middle of the summer. To clear up like that was like Gan Eden. Everything cleared, my sinuses, my whole system. I said to him, what was that? He said, that was adrenaline. Adrenaline. I said, adrenaline? Yeah, he said, adrenaline. Yes, correct, adrenaline. So I said to him, the adrenaline that we talk about, that when someone's excited about something, they have higher level of adrenaline? He said, yeah. So I said, so why don't you just give that to me and I don't have to do anything? He says, no, because then you'll build up immunity and it'll be dangerous. Adrenaline is not healthy all the time. Okay. Then I asked him a question. I said, doctor, can I ask you something? Is it possible that when I have natural adrenaline, it subdues the allergies? He says it is. So I said, Sundays, for some reason, I don't really feel the allergies. So I used to always think it's because I was working on the Sichas of the Rebbe. So on Sunday, it was a very intense day. So focused, you didn't even notice your nose running, your throat itching, etc. So first I just thought I didn't notice. He said, no. If you're really driven, and you're really driven by something completely, it affects your immune system. The natural adrenaline will weaken the allergies. And he gave me an example. He said, you ever see someone, an opera singer, or a Broadway actor, or a pianist? They can spend 2-3 hours on stage. You never see them yawn. You never see them sneeze. That's a natural thing to sneeze or yawn. He says, because you have a super control when your adrenaline is flowing. He says, that's why you can set your mind sometimes without an alarm clock. Wake up 5:30 in the morning, you wake up 5:30 in the morning. So I said to myself, now thinking about this, reading the Sicha, Mesiras Nefesh, the idea of total commitment, when you're passionately committed to something really, without any unwavering, without question, super rational commitment. Mesiras Nefesh. Nosa nafshe. You're nosa nafshe, like he says. Ala malocha. That can actually transform who you are, because it creates chemicals that flow out of you, adrenaline or other things, that actually strengthen the immune system. So hope, tag gut vet sein gut, the famous Sicha of the Rebbe, and the other expressions of betochen, trust, are not just concepts. They actually transform the person, transform your attitude, physically transform you, and give you more strength to fight disease and illness. You see two people in the hospital, God forbid, and one person has visitors and guests and gifts, another person, no one's there with him, chas v'shalom. You tell me what happens. The one that has no one there starts getting demoralized and gives up the will to live. The other person has people supporting. That adds, it changes a person. We know today gratitude, we know visitors, guests, these things have true impact. So there are many lessons to be learned about the power of our supra-rational commitment. And Nikras al Shmei, and it's called by your name. Imagine, the Odin is called by a human being's name. So imagine what kind of power that gave B'Tzalel. Each one of us has a B'Tzalel within us, a Moshe within us. We have all these levels of Mesiras Nefesh, as the Alter Rebbe says in Perek Yitches, Yutes and Tanya, and other places. So, may the Eibishter help that Mesiras Nefesh should only be used for good things. And we don't mean this in any way, chas v'shalom, in a negative way, Mesiras Harotzen. Complete passion to the cause, even more now than ever before, because precisely we don't know what's happening. This is the best time to reach to that super rational connection that we have to the Eibishter, and that in turn will infuse the malacha that we do, even the malacha, and all our faculties, make us stronger and healthier people. The Eibishter shall helfen as we go from Adar into Nissan, Mismar Geula LeGeula. We should have the Geula Amitis VaShlema, Geula Protis, Kol Echad VeEchad, including the Brias HaGuf, Ramach Evarim Shasa Gidim, and Brias HaNeshama. The Bible says Ramach Evarim and Shasa Gidim of the Neshama. B'Shleimus, and go march into the Geula Amitis VaShlema, from Geula Protis to Geula Klolis. And everyone should have a Freilich in Oder, keep healthy and well, and then a Freilich in Nissan, B'Nissan Nigalu, B'Nissan Asidin Ligal.